Hi. Last week was a very difficult one, to say the least. A co-founder of the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, who is also board director and president, Tracy Forrest, passed away, or as we say in aviation, has flown west. Tracy was our champion, our number one champion, inspiring the next generation and ensuring, along with Chairman Mike Herman, that scholarships were available to further aspiring young aviation professionals education at schools like Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. It is a tremendous loss for the industry and all who knew him personally. He will most definitely be missed. So on a much lighter note, I've been anticipating this particular show for over a month now, and I'm very excited about this unique panel, if I can call them that, guest that we have today. Today we will hear from female military helicopter aviators from all 5 branches of the United States military. And for their accomplishments so far, they're fairly young, but I dare say kicking butt and taking names. It will be, to say the least, an enlightening discussion about options, opportunities, and possibilities in military aviation specific to helicopters, but just in general. I think it's going to be an enlightening conversation for those of you who are watching. And I had a joke here that I was going to say, especially if you fly like a girl, which actually is a good thing because it's a compliment, because some of our best aviators today are women aviators. So welcome to the program, ladies. It's great to have you all with us. Very cool, actually. So I don't know if they still use cool, but I think it's cool. Anyhow, you guys have had some really interesting career paths. And most of all, you guys are very passionate about flying these helicopters for all the various missions that you do. So it's going to really be great to talk with you about that. Let me go ahead and introduce the panel. I'll start with Coast Guard Lieutenant Katherine Duran. Katherine is a Coast Guard pilot who does a variety of missions that also include search and rescue, but she'll tell us about some of the other things she does as well as a helicopter pilot in sunny San Diego. And then we have Army Chief Warrant Officer Kristin Blumberg with the Georgia National Guard. Kristin's also a helicopter pilot who does test flights amongst a lot of her responsibilities, and maintenance flights, which you'll explain a little bit more what that's about. We have Navy Lieutenant, fellow Navy, yay, Mariah Regis, I'm sorry, who's also an instructor helicopter pilot and will tell us more about what she does. We have Marine Corps Major Brittany Webster, another instructor pilot. In fact, I think almost everybody here is an instructor pilot. And then we have Air Force Captain Katie Danno, who's a flight commander at Joint Base Andrews. I don't know how much she's going to be able to tell us, but it will be fun to find out what kind of stuff they do out of Joint Base. And finally, and last but not least, we have Air Force Airman First Class Jodi Miller, a Special Missions Aviator. So she's part of the crew of these helicopters and can tell us the kind of responsibilities that they have. So ladies, again, welcome to the program. Glad to have you all here, and excited to talk with you guys about what you do and how you do it. So I think what we can start out with is to let everybody know a little bit about your backgrounds, because all of them your backgrounds are very diverse. Where you're from, what you studied in school. We have an English Lit major. See if anybody can guess who that is. We have a molecular biology major. Can hardly pronounce that one. So some pretty interesting backgrounds and interesting paths as to where you are now flying helicopters. That being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Mariah. Mariah, how about telling us where you're from and how you got into the helicopter business?
Thanks, Vince. So my name is Lieutenant Mariah Regis, call sign Thumbelina. I'm from Germantown, Maryland. And I graduated high school in 2009 in Maryland, and then got a full academic scholarship via the ROTC Reserve Officer Training Corps program to the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington. I majored in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology, so very applicable to aviation. During my time in ROTC, I realized I wanted to go aviation. After my freshman year, I did a program for 4 weeks down in San Diego where I spent a week with each of the services we could go into, and aviation appealed to me the most. So that's when I knew I wanted to go and fly. So upon completing my time at the University of Washington, I graduated and commissioned into the United States Navy as an ensign. From there, I went down to Pensacola, Florida for flight school. I completed flight school in about a year and a half to 2 years. I did primary flight training in the T-6B Texan at Whiting Field in Milton, Florida. I then went to advanced helicopter training in Whiting, Florida as well. I completed flight school in March of 2015 when I earned my Wings of Gold. From there, I went to San Diego to do the FRS, which is the Fleet Replacement Squadron, where I actually flew the aircraft that I flew in the fleet, which was the MH-60 Romeo, which is essentially a Black Hawk that is reconfigured for the Navy. Our primary mission sets were anti-submarine warfare and anti-surface warfare, so I tracked submarines and ships. And upon completing the Fleet Replacement Squadron, I then flew over to Japan and not on a helicopter. And I was stationed at HSM 51 in Atsugi, Japan from March of 2016 through January of 2019. During my time there, I spent 13 to 14 months underway on destroyers and cruisers, both going out independently and with the carrier strike groups, mostly operating in 7th Fleet. And then upon completing my fleet tour, I then got orders back to Pensacola, Florida to be an instructor pilot at HT8, which is where I currently am. I've been here for a year and a half, training students from their initial flight in a helicopter up to their wings.
So let me ask the obvious question. How did you come up with the call sign Thumbelina?
So the tradition of call signs, I would say, is not that you pick them, that other people pick them for you. And typically It's something that you don't love. So on one of my first detachments, when I was underway, one of my fellow pilots gave it to me because I'm kind of a princess and I have a toe thumb. If you know what that is, it's kind of just a fat thumb. And so they thought that was funny.
That would make sense. Okay. Interesting background on that.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, why molecular biology? How did that come about as a major?
So the United States Navy required that all, or at least 65% of their graduates have a scientific background or a hard science major. That's the word I was looking for. So they had different tiers. Exactly. So I was always really interested in biology. I loved the subject in high school. And so I knew that's something I wanted to pursue, and it fell into one of those categories. So it worked out for me.
Got you. Okay. We'll get back to you. I have a couple more questions for you about your path. But let me go ahead and introduce Katherine Durand, Lieutenant Katherine Durand from the Coast Guard. Katherine?
Vince, I grew up in New Jersey, along the coast, basically. And so when it came time to decide what I wanted to do post high school, I just couldn't imagine leaving the water. So I looked at both the Navy and the Coast Guard, and I decided that I was interested in the Coast Guard because of its humanitarian mission. And as cliche as it is, like, I just wanted to save lives. So that led me to the Coast Guard Academy. And I didn't become interested in flying until about halfway through the academy. Similarly, we have a 1-week program where they send you to a Coast Guard air station, and I got my first flight in a helicopter, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And that was the first time I even considered it as an option. And then as I started to learn more about the different missions in the Coast Guard, I realized that I wanted to stay operational and I wanted to be the person actually saving lives for as long as I could. And the way to do that was to be a helicopter pilot. And you can actually be the person flying the helicopter doing these SAR cases, not necessarily having to go to the staff jobs as early as some of the other specialties lead you that direction. So I settled that I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And the Coast Guard actually does not send everyone directly to flight school. So I did a couple years on a ship first, and then I applied to flight school from there and got picked up. And the Coast Guard, Navy, Marine Corps all do the same helicopter or the same flight school training in Pensacola, and then at Whiting Field. So I had a very similar path to what Mariah just said. And then upon winging, I went to San Diego. I've been here about 2 years, and the Coast Guard specializes in search and rescue. So that's kind of our bread and butter. And stand about 6 duties a month, which are just waiting for the SAR alarm to go off. And so they've been launched on a number of different SAR cases. They look a lot of different ways. Each case is slightly different. And so it's definitely keeps you on your toes for sure.
Had you been in a helicopter before you started your helicopter flight training ever?
I had that one ride in the back of a helicopter when I was a cadet at the academy. And then other than that, I always joke, so like the collective and the cyclic, the 2 controls we have in the helicopter, I was not the person that studied ahead. I did not even know what they were called before I started ground school for helicopters. So I went from not knowing what a cyclic was to flying the helicopter by myself over the course of like 20 days. It's crazy fast, but it's also really cool to go through that process so quickly.
Yeah, very cool. Captain Katie Danno, Air Force.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie. I have a path very similar to Katherine and Mariah both. I was born and raised out west in Montana. Both of my parents are national park rangers, so we moved around to different parks a lot. And we were moving from the West Coast to the East Coast, and we stopped at the Air Force Academy randomly. I say randomly, my dad thinks it was some manipulative tool to get me in there, which worked because I fell in love with it. And I ended up going there after high school. I did do a year of prep school, and I want to make that kind of a sticking point for everyone. There are a lot of ways to get to where each and every one of us are today. You heard ROTC, Coast Guard Academy, Air Force Academy, there's OTS, there's a lot of ways to get into this position. So I did a year of prep school, then went into the Air Force Academy, was lucky enough to graduate from there with a pilot slot. And then in the Air Force, I don't know if it's similar for other services, but we get our fixed wing license. I think Mariah, you said that as well, before we go to rotary wing. So that's really cool. We get an experience in fixed wing aircraft before we make the decision to go to helicopters. Went down to Fort Rucker, Alabama, spent about 6 months there learning how to fly a helicopter, a Huey, and then followed on in Albuquerque, where I specialized in the Huey helicopter. Spent about 4 years in Wyoming, learned to fly in the mountains, doing some high altitude flying, a little bit of search and rescue in there, a lot of gunnery.
Great experience.
Like yeah, it was really fun. Vastly different from what I'm doing now in Washington, D.C. The flying is different, the mission is different, but I was able to go to instructor school and in between there, and just flying here and instructing and enjoying it a lot. So it's all been pretty fun.
Well, good. Thank you. Jodi, you have a kind of a unique aspect of this. You're not a pilot, but you're the aviation mission specialist. I probably got that wrong.
Special Missions Aviator. Yeah, you got it.
Anyhow, your crew, and you have a lot of responsibility with this. It's after talking with you about it during a pre-show, I was like, wow, that's quite a job that you do. How about telling us a little bit about where you're from and your background and what you do as a crew member?
Yeah, so my background is very different from probably everyone here. I graduated high school in 2011. I was more focused on being a college athlete, so ended up running and getting my degree. So I do have a degree, but then I joined the civilian world, or not civilian world, but just jobs. I went and got some random jobs and just kind of missed having the team aspect. So I was kind of looking for that and decided, maybe the military would be a good option for me. So I ended up joining when I was around 25, and could have went the officer route, but I kind of wanted to just get in right away, get my feet wet and see like how the military was going to be. So I actually got lucky enough to get an aircrew job, and then ended up going to basic training, went through that, went through our basic Special Missions Aviator course, where we kind of like look at different aircraft that you could be on. So Special Missions Aviation isn't just the helicopters. It could be helicopters, anything from the Huey to HH-60 to CV-22, which is like a fixed wing and a helicopter. Also, you could be on like the big fixed wing aircraft, the 130s there too. So I got lucky enough. I wanted to be on the Hueys, the helicopters, and ended up picking up Andrews as my first base. So it's pretty unheard of for students straight from, I guess, college to go to Andrews. So it's kind of, I got lucky there. But I am out here and I've been here since June, kind of working on my job, just kind of learning the ins and outs of it, helping out the pilots. That's my main thing is to make sure everything's loaded on the aircraft correctly, make sure, we have the power that we need to take off. Say if, hey, we don't have this power, we need to wait a little longer until, we burn off some fuel so we're not as heavy. And then I go and I make sure basically anything the pilot needs, I kind of work with them, and anything from radios to clearing turns to make sure if they're kind of task saturated up front, I'm just trying to help out in the back and do my best to make sure that we're safe and we're working efficiently as a crew.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to talking to you more about that and just your path of somebody that went and got a degree, which automatically you think, okay, that person would go into service as an officer, but you chose to go through basic training and go the enlisted route. And it sounds like it's been working out really well for you. So I look forward to kind of talking with you about that some more. And we have Kristin. Kristin, you are Chief Warrant Officer with the Army, with the Army National Guard down in Georgia.
I am. I'm a Chief Warrant Officer 3. I joined the Army in 2008. I graduated from the University of Alabama in 2007 with an English Lit degree and a history degree, a dual major. I wanted to go to law school originally. The job market was really bad when I got out of college, and I decided I want to try something different. I got hired by Keystone Helicopters up in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and started working on the S-76 and S-92 programs as an interior fabricator. Where I met a couple of test pilots who were all ex-Army warrant officers. They took me on a couple of experimental flights as a sandbag, essentially, and I fell in love with flying helicopters there. So they helped me put in my packet, and I got accepted in 2008, went to basic in 2009, and graduated flight school in 2010. First went to Fort Irwin, California, where I was a VIP pilot and a OP4 pilot. OP4 is where I simulate the enemy aircraft and help train the ground soldiers on what enemies might do. After that, I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, which is a great duty station in the middle of nowhere, and got qualified on the UH-60 Mike, where I became an air assault pilot. Air assault is where you fly around conventional ground troops, but my main mission was special forces troops. So we got sent to Afghanistan, and I flew SEAL Team 2 and all the MARSOC, and MARSOC is the Marine Special Operations, and then the ODAs, which is a combination of the Green Berets training the Afghan soldiers. I did that for 9 months, and then I came back to America, where I moved again to Hunter Army Airfield, and immediately got deployed back to Romania and Germany. I did Operation Atlantic Resolve. It was right when the tensions were hitting off with Russia. So we were based on the Black Sea, ready to go over there if needed. We did a lot of deck landings and stuff, which is kind of cool for an Army person because we normally don't do that. And worked with a couple of SEAL teams over there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's something that I was actually going to ask several of you about. What was it like your first time landing on the back of a ship?
Terrifying. I'm speaking for myself. I'm a ground person. Aviation, Army aviation, we normally don't do water. And I had to wear all the stuff with the HEEDS bottle, which is like our air bottle. We do Dunker, so we're familiar with that. But the way the ship rocks, and I'll let the people who land talk about it, but you have to count and kind of figure out. So that was really interesting and a very, very cool assignment to live in Romania for almost a year. After that, I came back to America, decided I didn't want to be active duty Army anymore. and proceeded to join the National Guard, where they sent me to maintenance pilot school. And I became a civilian on the side because the Guard is part-time.
Right.
So I was a maintenance pilot down at Fort Rucker. I was on the TH-67s, which is a Bell 206, and I was a Lakota test pilot as well, which is the EC-45 equivalent. I did that for 2 years, and then I got picked up active duty Guard, where I became a training officer, and I'm now an instructor pilot in the UH-72 as well. And then our main mission currently in my unit is LEO support, which is law enforcement support. We do a lot of reconnaissance. We fly a lot of like GBI, which is the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, ATF, and we do a lot of counter drug eradication. And over the past 2 years, I had been in support of the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol.
So you do a lot of secret missions, basically, or confidential missions that you really can't even talk about in detail. I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
It's usually, we just call it sensitive.
Sensitive, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to stick with you for a second, and I'm kind of going to go around the room, because I think that one of the things that we want to get across to the young people that are watching, whether they're in high school, in college, almost finished with their degree in aviation or something of that nature, or they've already started in their career. It is really interesting to hear when someone like, and several of you have, where your major was English lit
and history.
And you wanted to be an attorney, but now you're doing these really cool missions and flying a helicopter. Where was the transition, besides what you mentioned, which was there weren't job opportunities, but where was the transition that you knew that flying a helicopter was going to be the coolest thing on the planet?
Well, as I said, I grew up in Peachtree City, Georgia, with if anybody's familiar, it's a very big Delta community. I'm from the Atlanta area. A lot of my friends' parents were Delta pilots. My mother retired from Delta. My father retired from Delta. So aviation had always been in the forefront. However, I was not ever really interested in airplanes. I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I mean, they're cool, but helicopters, man, they were just something different. I didn't see a path there. Because it's very expensive, and some of the people online probably know, to get a civilian certification. In fact, my respect for the people that do civilian certifications for helicopters is astronomical, because they have to work. There's different sacrifices you make when you're in the military, but the money they put forth, the time, the effort, the low-paying jobs. Yeah. So when Stacy Sheard and them were like, hey, there's this program where you can try to apply. You're a good candidate because you already have a college degree and you're a little bit of a unique candidate. Why don't you try? It kind of turned on a switch in my brain. I was like, maybe I can do this. I can speak for hopefully a lot of these people, but when 9/11 happened, I'm old enough to vividly remember it. And my mother is from the New York area. So a lot of her friends were deeply involved, and it was kind of just another way for me to get involved in the services where I thought I could actually make a difference and enjoy it at the same time. So that was a big turning point for me. And then the Army is very interesting because we have two different paths you can go. You can go as a warrant officer, or you can go as a commissioned officer. So when I went for my interview, they said, hey, you have a college degree, a 4-year degree. Why aren't you interviewing to be a commissioned officer? And for me, it's because I wanted to fly. So in the Army, if you're a commissioned officer, you don't fly as much. And that's just a fact. You're a commander, you're doing other things. A warrant officer is a technical, tactical, it's an expert at what we do, which is why we have tracks, which is why I have like 2 different jobs. So that was pretty much how I got there in the switch. And Stacy Sheard had a lot to do with it. For me, seeing a female in a test pilot role, as somebody who is pursuing my A&P, it was incredible. It was a really big push for me.
Yeah. So, and for people who don't know, Stacy Sheard is the chairman of the Helicopter Association International, which is the main association for helicopter flying overall, both civilian and military. So, with you guys talking about the difference between fixed wing and rotor wing, I'm going to step on that for just a minute, because I think several of you have had fixed wing training before you transitioned to rotor. Anybody else want to tell why they lean towards rotor and what that experience was about? Any of you can.
I can talk
Sure.
since I haven't introduced myself yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brittany.
That's all right.
Please tell us a little bit about your background as well. Sorry about
Sure.
that.
All right, so I'm Brittany. I grew up in California, in San Francisco area. The military definitely isn't, a very popular thing out there. Not something that people really strive to go to, but for some reason, I developed an interest in it, and I wanted to go to college. I wanted to play sports, and deep down, I wanted to be in the military. And so it worked out for me to go to the Naval Academy. So I got accepted there. Moved from California over to the East Coast. So that was a big shift for me. Moving from that environment, a different coast where there's humidity, and into the military life. Being at the Naval Academy, you have 4 years where they basically expose you to all the different things you can select as a Navy officer, Marine Corps officer. So I got good exposure to that. I wasn't super fond of the Marine Corps training that we did, where we had to go on long hikes and carry a lot of gear and that sort of stuff. So
oh, that wasn't fun?
No. Actually, I didn't really enjoy that too much, but I did really develop a love of the Marine Corps as a whole, and it kind of fit in with me going Marine aviation. And to your talking point that you just asked about going fixed wing or rotary, I realized that I wanted to become a helicopter pilot in the Marines so that I could be close to the fight for the Marines that were on the deck. So as I progressed through flight training, which was very similar to the other end of the coasties and the Navy path, going through primary advance in Pensacola, Corpus Christi area, I selected the AH-1 Whiskey, so the Cobra helicopter. For that, it's two pilots sitting one in front of the other, and the main mission of that is it's an attack platform. So we have a gun, we carry rockets, we carry missiles and that sort of thing, and we fly low, close to the ground. And the main mission for that is providing that close air support to the Marines or whatever joint forces, allied forces on the ground that need that support. So that really stuck with me. And fortunately got to go to Afghanistan and actually do some of that on a deployment, go through all the training to learn the tactics and that sort of thing. Was really fulfilling to actually get to go out and do that mission for real. So after I finished the FRS and got selected to fly the Cobra, I got stationed on the East Coast in the HMLA. So did my time with that squadron there, got to do the deployment to Afghanistan, got to go on a MEU where we also flew combat operations out in the Mediterranean. So got the experience flying in the dirt, got the experience flying off the ship, finished my time with the squadron as a fleet tour, and then got to go to a different job that was not flying related, but gave me a lot of exposure, just basically being a Marine officer and getting to actually work with Marines, and which is not an experience that you necessarily get a lot of as a pilot. So I got a lot of exposure to that, got to go back to Afghanistan, this time on the ground, almost in the exact same area that I was when I was flying. So that was a great experience. And then I finished up my 3 years with that unit at the Marine Corps Security Cooperation Group that's stationed in Virginia Beach. Finished that actually earlier this year and got sent to my current location now as a flight instructor. So I'm actually pretty new here. I'm going through the instructor syllabus myself right now. So once I complete that, I'll start actually instructing students. But
let me have some fun with you. Ever roll a Cobra?
You're not the first person to ask me that, actually. But no,
as a pilot, I just have to.
I have not, and I think that's one of those things that you can do one time. but never again. So
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah,
have
no,
not.
I just had to mess with you about that. I did some research on you guys in terms of women flying in the military, specifically women helicopter pilots. And as an example, for the Marines, when I looked it up, it only wanted to tell me about women F-35 pilots, et cetera, fixed wing. It was really hard to find anything about women helicopter pilots and specific to the Marine Corps. What's your take on that?
I think I mean, the Marines in general are a really small service. And if you continue to break that down, how many Marines are actually Marine pilots? How many of those pilots are helicopter pilots? How many of those helicopter pilots are female? And the numbers just continue to decrease. So, I mean, I think it's a great job. I encourage it. So
Do you think the opportunities are better now, as we, get a little bit more progressive in thinking and that type of thing, and as the military services do for uh, uh, people in general, but a young lady who says, I think I want to fly helicopters. Do you think it's a better opportunity now? And if so, what do you recommend they do towards that track?
I mean, my personal experience, with the squadron and going through flight training and all that is I felt like I was treated exactly the same as the guys. There's a certain culture where you have to have thick skin because, you poke fun at each other and that sort of thing. So maybe from an outsider's perspective, it might be unappealing, but really once you become part of the squadron, that's just, you're working there with your brothers and sisters and, there's no issues. So maybe in today's culture, it might just seem more appealing because it's just, an overall more accepting atmosphere in general. But I would never discourage anyone about it, being a female in a male dominated environment. So as far as what I would do, I would say just keep doing whatever you're doing to prep, being book smart, being good at studying, getting into physical fitness, that sort of thing. Maybe growing some thick skin, but that's, if you're just going to poke fun at your buddies, as they do to you. But I mean, nothing super specific in that aspect.
Yeah, I saw Kristin kind of nodding in agreement with you. Kristin, you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, I work at so I've been flying since 2010. I have only ever flown with 3 other female pilots. There's just not a whole lot of us. There's a lot more than there used to be. And it's because we are starting to mentor people. And it's just when it's visible, it's easier to see yourself doing it. But yeah, thick skin, I would highly recommend it. I grew up with 5 brothers. So for me, it was just like being home. But for other people, it's not that easy. And I've seen it. Some people just can't adapt to the culture. But if it's something you really want, it's just like having brothers. That's truly it. And you are a family, especially when you deploy. That person that's sitting next to you or is in your crew is, if something happens, it's happening to them too. So it's a different type of bond, and it's a great one. And there is more female pilots out now, and there's more female crew members, and we are doing our best to mentor the next generation and let them know that, hey, there's more of us. But for me, yeah, only being able to fly with 3 other pilots in 10 years, we're coming a long way. I can see there's a lot more coming, but definitely thick skin. That was a very good comment.
Vince, do you mind if I jump in?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to this that in the Navy, I know specifically, it was only 8% women in naval aviation total for years. It just bumped up to 10%. So we are growing, which is great. And I have noticed a huge transition just at flight school as well. From when I went through flight school, the number of female instructors, there was only 1 at my squadron. And but there were quite a few female students, and now there's even more female students, and our wardroom of instructors are 14% female. So we are on the rise, which is so great to see. Brittany is the only Marine female IP We didn't have one for a while, so it's great to see her here to mentor the female Marines as well, which is on the rise. So we are increasing in number, and it's really great to see, because it is hard to go into an area that you can't see yourself in. So having that mentorship and a role model is so great. Also, I think some of the training that we've been incorporating in the military is really great. Unconscious bias training, imposter syndrome, implicit bias, all of those things also kind of help to bring us into a more welcoming scenario.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you guys are doing that. Let me put this out to everybody, and you guys can chime in how you want. I want to give a couple scenarios of what the viewers are thinking and wondering about. One is, I'm in high school, I'm getting ready to go to college. I'm thinking, about aviation, maybe helicopter. I think I want to fly professionally. Military hasn't really been an option in my mind, but if it were, what would you suggest I do as I get ready to start school? That's one. The other is, I'm in college, I'm in my junior or senior year, or I just graduated this past June or something, and COVID-19 has turned things upside down in terms of my professional pilot track as a civilian. What could I look at doing as I'm finishing up or just finished college with regard to that? And any of you guys can chime in on that, please.
A little bit about that. Oh, sorry, Katherine, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, just keeping your mind open to all of these options. Like I was saying earlier, like I never went into the Coast Guard Academy thinking I would fly. It's a passion that I found later, and I've come to truly love it. And so you just never know what doors might open for you later. And then again, so much of that, I feel like, especially in aviation, is outreach and networking. And it's something that I did not want to appreciate because I was pretty shy growing up. And I wanted to think that I could just do it on my own in terms of doing the hard work and getting good grades. But it really is a lot of asking people questions, both about just seeing what your interests are to get more information from them. And then you never know how those people might be able to help you down the line. So definitely recommend doing things like this where you can just meet people, and reaching out to people if you ever think you have something in common with them, and you just never know how that might end up helping you.
I think that's a really great point. Kristin, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say something. The National Guard or even reserves is something else to think about, because if you do have a passion for flying, but you're not really sure if you want to make a career of it, or if you want to, if you're in school. I know a lot of people that are in the National Guard fly, and then they also fly like on the civilian side as jet pilots or working for Delta or Envoy. So there's just so many options that I think I legitimately did not know about when I was joining the service. I just thought that you had to go active duty. And for me, I only wanted helicopters. And when I talked to the other branches, they wouldn't guarantee me helicopters. So there's just a ask. Yeah, I can't stress networking enough. There's plenty of us that are willing to talk to people and tell you our experiences. And then if we don't know the answer, we know exactly who to tell you to talk to. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think the best time to network is now, even though things aren't where people would like them to be because of the challenges with the pandemic. But networking is a key, and it's something, if you talk with people and stay in touch with people that have, as somebody said, a similar interest, that's probably going to work out for you. Maybe not immediately, but down the road at some point. Before I shift, I wanted to see if Captain Danno or Jodi, if either one of you wanted to add to what we're talking about.
Yeah, just back to our previous topic, I share similar experiences with all of the other women here. In my previous assignment, I was the only woman in my unit, and it's lonely. And I will say that I have no desire to adapt to the culture. I want to change it, and I think that that's why we're all here, hoping that what we're doing makes the path for younger generations a little bit smoother and a little bit easier. And like Kristin was saying, if you can see yourself in someone else ahead of you, it makes it so much easier to become that person. And then as far as the kids that are wanting to come into this field, into aviation, into the military in general, I would say that it's hugely important just to be a well-rounded person, and talk about like English lit majors, engineering majors, biochem, and like Jodi, a D1 runner. It's so important to just be well-rounded, have all of these things, because that's what we're looking for in this community and in the military, and in shaping future leaders. You want someone who can do it all. You don't want someone who's just a machine. None of us are machines. We all make mistakes. We've all had failures. We've all, we've just gone through everything, and I'm sure everyone else can speak to that. It's not an easy path, and stay in the books, definitely, with your STEM courses. And if the military is something you want, join ROTC, Civil Air Patrol. There are a lot of programs out there for young kids, and especially things like this. Like we never had this when we were growing up. We never could log on to YouTube and look at 5 women in helicopter aviation and say, oh, there's someone who looks like me. There's someone from my hometown. I can do this now. It's not too late, and it's not too hard. You can do it. If I could do this, anyone could do this. It's you can do it.
I'm glad you mentioned ROTC again. I can't overstate the importance of that as a path for getting into the military through school. It's a great way to get acclimated with it while you're studying and that type of thing, and really get a feel, to me, if it's something that's really going to be up your alley as you progress through school, because you do some of the drills and some of the other activities that are military related, and it kind of gives you a good idea about that. I want to move to something else, but I wanted to see if Jodi had anything. Jodi, as an airman and a crew person on a helicopter, what's your take on it, especially with the route that you've taken?
Yeah, I guess if I could kind of go back to when I was in high school, I wish I would have thought of, hey, like there are other options. It's not just, me being a high school student. I was like, okay, well, I can run, I can pay for school, but like there's other options out there. Like that's not, you got to think of your future, and like, what do you want to do every day? Do you want to wake up doing something that's exciting, or, something that not many people get to do? It's just, I wish I would have kind of gone through more of my options, and kind of, ask questions, been like, hey, what can I do? Can I do this? Instead of just kind of following that path that I had taken. I kind of just got trapped in that. And then I graduated with a degree, and then went out into the world, and I couldn't use my degree as much as I wanted to. And I like to work hard. And like I said, I like that team aspect. And I wish I would have realized, before, there are other options that you can kind of, just ask questions. You don't have to sign on the dotted line right away. You can ask questions. You can go to, I know they have like little events where, you get to bring in like a friend with a military member and kind of like go through their day to day. So I wish I would have kind of gone back and kind of asked myself like, hey, at the end of your running career, like, what are you going to do? Instead of just go get your degree, have it paid for. So that's just kind of my path, and how I wish I could have kind of redone that.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that with us, though. That's a very important point. I do have a question from a viewer, and I'm going to just read the question as is. The viewer says, being a female in a male-dominated field, how much more difficult do you think the process was for you? What helped you get through it, more importantly? And I think I'm going to go to Katie Danno first. And since, based on what you were just saying, Katie, you probably have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I will say that there have been challenges. And I think everyone's road is different. Everyone's perspective on this is probably different. But as I mentioned before, it can be lonely. I relied heavily on my friends and my family and mentors. And like Kristin was saying, I found a woman who I could look up to in my field to show me the path. But there are days, there are weeks, there are years that I've questioned my service in a way that isn't because I don't want to be here and I don't want to be doing something that's good for the community, but because it's been difficult. And I think that what I've had to do is kind of look inside myself and say, I have a young daughter, and I want her life to be easier and to be a smoother road than I had. And even for the women ahead of me, like my path has been easier because of the women who've gone before me. So yeah, there will be difficult days and difficult times, and you have to rely on the people around you, especially the other women, the other people you can kind of lock arms with and stay strong.
Anyone else?
And kind of jump off that, and just that you might be thrust into that mentor role earlier than you think you're ready for. So I have only been flying this aircraft for 2 years at this point, and there are 2 women at my unit, me and someone who is even more junior than I am. So the men that we work with are great, and they're very supportive, and like everyone else was saying, like I do feel like I'm working with brothers, and it's so much fun flying with them, but there are just things that they don't know. Like, how do I deal with my hair in a bun while I have to wear a helmet? Or what do I have to do when we're flying for 6 hours and I have to go to the bathroom? Like, just different issues like that. And so I am that mentor to that other woman that I work with when I never, like, I want that person myself. So it's a great community. You do have to be more aggressive about finding mentors for yourself, but then you also need to be willing to be that mentor for somebody else.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so I agree. I think the biggest thing, I've been in situations where I'm the only female. I've been in situations where we have quite a few females. I've kind of seen both sides of the spectrum. And I would say getting those support groups together, even if you're the one forming it, is so important. I know that I would do that wherever I went. So in my squadron, as we got more and more females, we would do a get together. Sorry, my phone's ringing. 1 second.
Your bandwidth just changed.
Sorry, kind of busy here. Okay. But yeah, so I would say forming the support groups. And then I also think education is so important in terms of making the workplace a better place, whether it be military or civilian. So I mentioned unconscious bias, implicit bias, imposter syndrome before. If you don't know what those are, I highly encourage you to go research those and even take the test of unconscious bias to see what your unconscious biases are, because that's something that I think hinders women in the workplace from excelling. Is just simple things like I never felt any sexism towards me in my workplace, but once I read more into those, I was like, the men do tend to bro out together, and that allows them to have a better relationship with my commanding officer or my O4s, and therefore they're going to be more comfortable around them, and therefore they're going to potentially rank them higher. And it's not necessarily anything that they did on purpose, but it's just something unconscious that they did. And things like that. Also, imposter syndrome is a huge issue that some women face. So I highly encourage you researching this, even men watching this as well, so that training can happen and workplaces can improve.
Great, thank you. With the time that we have left, I want to go around the room and actually hear from each of you a little bit more specifics about what you specifically do as a pilot, right, a helicopter pilot right now. Not only in terms of your flight instruction, but if recently you've done any kind of special mission or unique mission or unique flying or something like that. I'd like for our viewers to know what you guys do. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Kristin to tell us about what you do. You mentioned it earlier, but I know you're a maintenance test pilot, I believe, et cetera. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in the Army, and I don't know how other services are, but we have a maintenance test pilot instructor path you can take as a warrant officer. So we go to a 7-week course that teaches us how to do ground records and stuff, which is pretty easy for me because I had been working towards an A&P before I joined the military. They teach you how to manage the program in accordance with Army terms. And then because I'm in the UH-72 Lakota right now, we're also a civilian aircraft. So it's an N number aircraft. So we have to maintain FAA records on top of Army records. So it's a little bit more complex.
Dakota? What's the Dakota used for specifically?
The Lakota that I fly is reconnaissance. We have an MX-15 camera on the front with a FLIR. It's a really nice camera. And yeah, we do stuff like that. So for my role, I make sure the aircraft is airworthy. I work with my mechanics. I know enough to be dangerous as a pilot, and I'm sure Jodi can speak on this. If your pilot knows anything about maintenance, it's kind of a dangerous thing because I don't know, it just is. So we work on aircraft, make sure it's airworthy, and then I go do the test flights after major maintenance is done to make sure that they're good for the other pilots to fly. So that's my main job right now. I'm in charge of a major maintenance section. So we're in charge of 12 aircraft right now. Heavy phases, which is like if they go down for a while and we have to fix it, take the mast off, take the engines apart. So I'm in charge of all of that right now. And
Wow.
then making sure that they're worthy.
That's impressive. Since you brought Jodi into the conversation, I'm going to continue with Jodi. Jodi, tell us about what you do as a crew member, and also answering what Kristin just said about maintenance and that aspect of flying.
Yeah, so
I totally value, by the way.
No, so basically I need to be a systems expert on everything. If something goes wrong, I need to be able to say, hey, you might have this light, this could be happening. I kind of have to be able to evaluate it in the back while they're flying.
Let me just interrupt you real quick. What you're saying is you know as much about the helicopter as the person flying it.
Yes, I'm supposed to know as much about the helicopter as the person flying it, right? But like even with that, like we actually have a program going here. It's our minor maintenance actions where I can actually, once we land, I can check a chip detector, make sure it's not faulty. I have to be able to actually understand where that problem might be occurring and be able to fix it, or say, hey, like it's safe to fly at this point, we can fly it home, or, we need to land it. We need to actually have maintenance come out and check on it. So with that, I guess, it's all about knowing your systems, knowing, what issues are going to be happening on the aircraft.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's definitely like even going from, being a cornfield in Iowa to running in college to, hey, learn everything about this helicopter. It's kind of crazy. I can't believe that, the knowledge that I've acquired along the way in such a short amount of time. It baffles me. I feel like I studied more for this helicopter than I ever studied in college. So it's pretty crazy there, but yeah. Yeah.
Captain Danno, you're at Joint Base Andrews, and you actually run a command over there with the helicopter unit. What do you do? What do you guys do over there? I see your helicopters coming and going all the time. What's that all about?
Yeah, so Jodi and I work together, which has been fantastic. And I feel like I have to be Jodi's biggest cheerleader on here because she doesn't say enough about herself. The flight engineers in our helicopters, they keep them running, they keep us legal, and they keep everything safe. So her role and the other flight engineers in our unit is massive. As far as our mission, we evacuate high-ranking DC officials in the event of a national emergency. It's kind of our tagline. And we're flying around just practicing for that in case that happens, and we want to be prepared and ready if that mission is asked of us. So flying in the capital region here in Washington, D.C. is incredibly different than flying in the mountains and plains of Wyoming, where there were no rules and you just make it up and do whatever you want. Here it's pretty structured, and there's, like you said, there's eyes on us all the time, which has been a different aspect of flying here because everyone has a camera on their phone. So if you're flying too low and too fast and in the wrong area, you're on video now. So it's definitely keeping you pretty accountable flying in the city.
So no flying under bridges on the Potomac?
Oh yeah. Maybe once again, like with the Cobra, you could do it one time and that's about it.
Yeah. So besides the practice and training that you do you have daily missions that are in terms of people movement or anything like that there at the base?
Yeah, we do. We do VIP transfer. So if a general or any high-ranking government official needs to make a meeting at the Pentagon, or they need to go to Langley or Quantico, anything like that, we'll assist in that, especially if there's weather or there's something happening. So we'll do
Gotcha.
that. Mm-hmm.
Mariah, how about you? What do you do currently with your flying?
So currently I'm an instructor pilot. So I train students
full
as
time?
they go from their full-time.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So training students from their first initial helicopter flight where they're trying to hover. And believe it or not, hovering is actually quite difficult, especially if you don't have a stability system, which we
The
do not in our
worst.
training
I mean,
aircraft.
it's the best. It's the hardest.
It's the best. Yes. But it is the hardest thing to learn. It's very similar to riding a bike. So you can't really teach someone. They just have to kind of find their balance. So currently doing that, which is super fun and very scary because students are just trying to kill you every day, not intentionally, but, doing full autos with the students and, cutting the engine on them. You're just like, please do the correct thing. So that's been terrifying and exhilarating. Before this, I was in Japan, like I said, flying the Romeo tracking submarines and ships. And that was also a really incredible experience, especially being stationed in a foreign country. I loved it. It was so incredible. Flying through downtown Tokyo, level with the skyscrapers, going around Fuji, landing in landing zones at the base of Mount Fuji was probably some of the most memorable flying I'll ever do. So I'm really grateful for that, as well as being able to land on a ship, I think makes naval aviation really unique. Other services do occasionally land on it, Coast Guard, yeah. But I think that's our bread and butter. And that's been an incredible experience. Also incredibly scary. There's been times where I'm on final for the ship and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. I'm so nervous, but it's amazing. So I love it.
What was your first experience like landing on a ship?
It wasn't as bad as I thought. They kind of ease you into it. So you do practice ones on land first, and then you're going to land during the day, and they have minimal pitch and roll requirements. So as in like very restrictive, I should say. So they start you off pretty smooth. So the first landing wasn't too bad. And that was a great flight for me. I'm not going to lie. I really liked that flight. And then there've been other instances though, where rough seas, really dark night, landing in the middle of a storm, where you get black hole effect or et cetera, have been not as fun. So, but the first time was actually very, very relaxing actually and fun.
Lieutenant Duran, you spend a lot of time over the water. What are your experiences like, and what are some of the things you do? You do search and rescue, but I know you've done some other things too.
Right, the Coast Guard is kind of this jack of all trades when it comes to things closer to the coast. So we're very involved in, especially in San Diego, in law enforcement as well. And that might not be over the water. So for example, there were a couple of Border Patrol ATVs that were like stuck down in a ravine, and we hoisted them out for them.
Oh, wow.
Or we're often involved in like helping the surface assets, like the ships, with drug interdiction. So the Coast Guard does kind of get its hands in a lot of different missions. But search and rescue is definitely our biggest thing and what we train for the most. And so that is a lot of flying over the water at night. And like I was saying earlier, like search and rescue can just mean so many different things. And it's a very glamorous term, but it's not very glamorous when you're actually doing it a lot of the time. So like what people don't talk about is getting woken up at 1 a.m., searching all night and not finding anything, getting more gas and searching another 4 hours. And so it is a lot of crew coordination. We talk about that a lot in aviation. The two crew members we have in the back are very involved in both searching and just backing us up when we've been flying all night and the pilots are tired. But then the more glamorous things that we actually do is when we actually find somebody, or we know that we're going out for a medevac and someone that we know needs assistance. And so hoisting over a boat or over the water, basically we're in a hover over that asset and we're picking that person up using the rescue swimmer, usually with the hoist cable. So I've been able to do that a couple times. It is really cool to actually see, like you get that that closure, I guess, of finding that person, bringing them into your helicopter, landing at the hospital and delivering them to the ER or the trauma center, or whatever that person needs. So it is a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, I just think it's great what you guys do, and it's pretty amazing. And I can imagine how challenging those long search and rescue missions can be. Major Webster, Marine pilot, instructor. What kind of stuff are you doing these days on your regular duty?
So right now, as I mentioned, I just got to my new duty station here. So right now I'm actively going through the instructor syllabus so that I can be all ready to go and actually start instructing students. So technically me and Mariah have the same job. She's just been doing it longer. So I will be doing the things that she just talked about. But as far as what I'm doing right now, I have, there's an instructor under training syllabus that they put us through. And so every day we study the same books that the students get, learn how to fly the same helicopter, learn all the same maneuvers, and just get really proficient at that to make sure that we're ready to be able to teach all that stuff to the students. So pretty much just flying every day, doing my own training, trying to get ready for that.
Sounds fun. I'm going to start with you and doing around the room as we wrap things up. What's the one piece of advice more than anything that you would give to our young viewers who are considering a career in aviation, considering the military aviation, considering flying a helicopter, etc.? I'll start with you, Major.
Okay. I guess my first instinct response to that is there's a lot of reasons why people join the military, and there's a lot of reasons why people pursue whatever paths that they do inside of that. I think it's really important to figure out what's important to you, and what fulfills you in that aspect. So being part of the military, you're joining a team, you're serving your country, you're developing brothers and sisters next to you, going through experiences that is not a common thing that a lot of people in this country get to do. So finding the fulfillment and having that that atmosphere and those people around you has to be something that is important and makes you want to get up in the morning to go do your job. And then as far as being in aviation, all our missions are different, but I get to put on a flight suit every day and go outside and fly a helicopter. It's a really awesome job. It gets me out from behind a computer. I enjoy that. And, whether you're training future students to go, proceed on and get to their actual fleet aircraft and do their mission, or you're flying your fleet helicopter and you're, in combat, or you're, doing search and rescue or whatever it is, you have to find that thing that fulfills you and, makes you proud to be doing what you're doing, so you can continue to enjoy it and do it well.
Chief Warrant Officer Blumberg, same question.
Yeah, I'll kind of resonate with what she's saying. For the military, you really have to understand what you're getting yourself into. And I think most of us did, all of us did. And understand that what you're doing is a lot bigger than yourself. All of us do special missions or stuff that affect the people. My main job is to support the guys on the ground. And when you get that satisfaction or that justification of what you're doing, it really makes it all worthwhile. At least it did for me, especially downrange or in Afghanistan. It kind of brings it full circle. You fly because it's fun, but if you have purpose behind why you're flying, it's even better. Yeah, just know what you're getting yourself into. Ask women about the military. I cannot stress this enough. Like little things, like she said, peeing when you're on an 8-hour mission. How does it happen? Guys, just pull out a Gatorade bottle. I will eternally be jealous of that because it is a big deal for us. Other stuff, like we, at least in the Army, we don't room with guys. So even when it's chow time or going to dinner, you have to, especially in Afghanistan, you have to go out of your way to find people to go dinner with you. It's just different for us. It will always be different, and hopefully it'll get better, but the more of us that come along, but definitely ask questions. I've been blatantly honest with people, and I don't know if that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely,
in terms of
the best way.
Yeah, sometimes it scares people. In terms of aviation, be passionate. It is a intensive career. I always make the joke, I have a bachelor's and a master's. For me, flight school was way more intensive than both of those combined. And it's a quicker time period, and it is a fire hose. You have to really, really want it. That being said, if you do, it's a lot more enjoyable when you finally get those wings and when you go through all of it. But definitely know what you're getting yourself into on that aspect too. There is a lot of studying, but at English major, if I can do it, you know what I mean? And I have a lot of buddies, and that's what's unique about the Army too. My stick buddy in flight school was 18. He basically graduated high school, did really well on the SIFT is what they call it now, the flight test, and interviewed phenomenally and was my stick buddy in flight school. So there are so many different paths is all I can say about that. Do your research, talk to people. That's all I got to offer about that.
All right, thank you. Navy Lieutenant Regis.
I definitely agree with everything that Kristin said. I think having a passion behind what you're doing really is what sets the military apart. When you're doing that mission, it's really rewarding. Flight school is a lot of work. You're studying, it's different than studying for college, right? Or your master's, because there's a physical aspect to it too. So you're reading the books, but you're also in the aircraft, and you have to have the TIC skills as well as the mental skills. So it is a lot of work. It's very challenging, but personally, I love a challenge. So, all those boat landings that I said I was really nervous for, they're rewarding in the end. And I really like it. And I can say I'm one of only 35,000 people in the history of the world to be an unrestricted naval aviator. So I think that's incredible in and of itself. And I really hope that this encourages more and more women to get into military, or at least into any other male-dominated career, because we need women. We need that perspective. We make up over 50% of the population, but we're so minimal in terms of careers in the business world and in the military especially. And I think that's showing in leadership. We potentially are losing out on half of the best leaders possible. So I encourage women to continue to break down barriers, get in there, be assertive. I'm assertive if you haven't noticed, and show your stuff. And that way we can continue to grow.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Captain Danno.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Mariah. You hit the nail on the head. We're capable, we're awesome, and we're here to do the work. So I encourage women, support women every chance that I can, and I know that the rest of us do the same. And ultimately, the military has given me every opportunity in life. It gave me an education, a first-class education. It gave me pilot wings and fixed wing and in rotary wing. It sent me to my master's degree. I met my husband. I created a family. It's given me every opportunity. So I'm eternally thankful to the military in that aspect. They've taken care of me well, and I feel like to return the favor, we do stuff like this. We encourage the next generation, and we make it better for the next generation. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Coast Guard Lieutenant Duran, take us home.
I'd say the biggest thing I have is don't talk yourself out of something before you've even tried it. If you're interested in something, I think it's really easy for people to think like, well, I'm not smart enough to do that, or maybe I don't have the stick skills, or I just basically being afraid of failure before they've even attempted something. So I think especially in aviation, I have met so many people that talk about failing tests in ground school, failing check rides, being on the verge of not making it through, but then they do make it through, and they're amazing pilots because they had to work that much harder for it. And so I think if you really want something, you can just put your head down and do that extra work, and you might need to study harder than the person next to you, but if you want it, you can make it happen. And so don't not even attempt something because you're afraid you might not make it.
Very good. Did I get everybody? Did I leave anybody?
Oh, you got me, so.
Then I did. That's exactly why I said that, Jodi, because I was like, oh, did I leave the flight engineer out?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I get forgotten all the time. No, I'm just kidding. I guess my biggest thing is don't give up. I mean, you might go down a certain path and look back and realize like, why did I do that? But everything happens for a reason. But also try and just like make sure you keep your options open, and just keep looking out for the next possibility. You never know. I mean, I never thought I'd be here, and I feel blessed every day to get to do what I get to do and see things that not many people get to do as well. So just keep your head up and, keep working hard at it and figure out, what do I want to do every day? What am I going to wake up to and say, wow, how did I get here? How do I get to be, doing the job that I do? So it's always, there's always something.
Well, that's great. I'd like to thank everybody for being on the program today. You guys have given out some really great and valuable information and insight on your careers. And there's a lot of, it's interesting because there are a lot of different aspects, but then there's a lot of common denominators too. So it's really great that you guys have been able to offer that on the program today. So really appreciate that. And again, like to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. I know you're all going to have to go flying at some point. So, and we appreciate everything. So on behalf of the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, I could say that 3 times real fast. The Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, I'd like to thank everybody. I'm Vince Mickens, and we look forward to catching up with you guys or with the viewers again next week. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.